Do you think financial advisors and pilots have much in common when it comes to being successful? Mark Hynes, a 10-year MDRT member with 10 top-of-the-table honours, hadn't thought about it until he rode a helicopter ride with a friend. During that ride, he discovered just how the planning and preparation needed for a successful flight is similar to that of a successful financial advisor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mark Hynes.
Come fly with me, let's fly.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Caroline. This morning's presentation is in 3 parts. First of all, I'd like to tell you a story about something that happened to me many years ago. Secondly, I'd like to share with you my reflections of how that story relates to financial services and sales. And thirdly, I'd like to incorporate some of the lessons I've got from that with my own MDRT experiences and hopefully share some lessons that will be useful to yourselves as MDRT members also. So more than 25 years ago, I was working with a friend and colleague called Roland back in the UK, and Roland was a very successful financial advisor. In fact, Roland won Financial Advisor of the Year in the UK the year before Caroline Banks won it. And Roland was so successful that he actually owned 2 helicopters. And I was working with him one day and he said, "Mark, I've had one of my helicopters serviced. Would you like to fly back with me on the journey?" And this helicopter had been serviced about 100 miles north of where we lived, and we had to go up on a train to collect it. So I said, "Yeah, that would be a really exciting day out, thank you." And I thought that we'd just turn up, put a key in the engine, turn it on, and we'd fly it back, much as we would drive a car. And I was quite surprised how complicated and how complex the whole thing was. So first of all, on the train journey on the way up, Roland got all sorts of charts and maps out, and he started off with the aerodrome where we were going to be, and then the aerodrome where we had to land. And because we would be flying by visual navigation, which means that he had to see everything that he was going to be, the route he was following, he had to work out churches and villages and railway stations and highways and look for any visual clues that he was on the right track. And they had to work out how long it was going to take him from each of these points, from the first point to the next point to the next point, and see how long it was going to take, how much fuel he was going to take, and basically put together this flight plan of our trip back home again. Then when we got to the aerodrome and he looked at his helicopter, again because it had just been serviced, I thought we'd get in and fly off. But he did all sorts of physical and mechanical checks. He checked the outside of the helicopter, the inside of the helicopter, the rotor blades, all sorts of things to make sure it was fit to fly. And each time he did all these checks, he was logging them into a logbook to record it all. And just before we set off, he had one final weather check to make sure the weather was going to be okay. I said, "Roland, why are we having a weather check?" And he said, "Well, everything we're doing is by sight, and unless the weather is perfect, we can't make the trip." So that makes sense. So he then went up to the air traffic control department tower and handed in his flight plan and said, "This is where we are, this is where we're going, this is the routes and the journey that we're going to be following, and this is how long I expect to take." So he had some sense of accountability to the authorities in case anything went wrong. Then he asked for permission to take off, and off we went. What I didn't know was that Roland wanted to practice his skills as a helicopter pilot as he's flying. And the first skill that he wanted to practice was auto-rotation. And I said, Mark, hey, he said, "Have you ever done auto-rotation?" I said, "No, Roland, I've got no idea what auto-rotation is," but I was soon to find out. Auto-rotation is where the pilot flies the helicopter up into the sky, turns the engine off, points the helicopter down towards the ground, and hopes that the gravitational pull of the helicopter as it plummets towards the earth will start the rotor blades and kick-start the engine and sort of jump-start the engine. And it worked, and then he did it again and it worked again, so I was a little bit nervous, my breakfast was a little bit uncomfortable. but Roland wanted to practice these skills. Next thing he did, which he thought was enormously funny, was hedge hopping. So he's flying really low on the fields, flying towards a hedge, then right at the last minute jumped over the hedge, and then off to the next one, and then jumped over the hedge, much as a hurdling racecourse would do. And he thought this was terribly funny, and he was laughing his head off at how nervous I was getting. So although I was scared, I was very impressed, and I was becoming very inspired with the confidence that he had at the controls of the helicopter. Then all of a sudden it went a little bit quiet, because as we're flying along, we were enveloped in fog. Couldn't see a thing. And you remember that all of our navigation was by sight. And it was as though a captive had a bag pulled over the head, no sense of orientation, no idea where we were, couldn't have a clue which direction we were going in or anything. So Roland suddenly became sombre and quiet, and one of the controls on his helicopter measures how level the helicopter is. It's got sort of blades, because he said, we can very easily get disorientated and crash this thing, because I've got no idea which way I'm pointing. So he was focusing on making sure we stayed level. And I said, well, can't we just land? He said, no, Mark. He said, I can't see where we are, so we can't just land on someone's house. We can't just bring the helicopter down. So why can't we go higher up? Why can't we go above the fog? He said, well, higher up, the lighter aircraft fly, and we might go into the flight path of an aeroplane. And we haven't got a radar, so we've got no idea to know whether we can go above the fog. So basically we had to trust the instruments to stay level and work our way sort of at that height sideways and keep going round and round until we could clear the fog. Eventually we did. Roland stayed calm, he stayed focused, but we had no idea where we were now, and so we had to go down a bit lower and try and see some towns and some names and some road signs and try and reorientate ourselves as to where we were. We knew where we wanted to go, and once we knew where we were, we knew we had to head south towards London. And anybody that knows London, there's the River Thames that flows east to west right through the river through London. And so as long as we could head to south, we knew that we could come across this river and we'd be able to work our way out from there. And what was really neat is because he had to fly so low, because in London there's a really busy flight path to Heathrow, so we flew really low and got to see all the sights of London from close quarters. So that was a really nice, exciting trip, which wasn't the original route that he'd planned. And we flew past Greenwich. Roland and I both lived in Greenwich at the time, and you may or may not know, but all the world time zone starts from Greenwich Meridian. So we flew over that, and eventually we got to Redhill Aerodrome, which is where we were meant to be, and we arrived at our destination. We took a different route, we took a different time, but we did actually get there. So although it wasn't what was expected, it was still quite an interesting and enjoyable day. And so what follows now are a number of reflections. I'm going to share 4 reflections with you about how that trip reminds me of financial services and sales. And then we're going to go on to talk about some stories for MDRT. But before I do that, I have to issue a technical warning, because a lot of my talk today is about aviation and aeroplanes and so forth, but I actually don't know anything about aircraft. And in fact, what I wanted to do in terms of preparation for today was what I did is I took my camera off to Heathrow Airport, and I wanted to record a jumbo landing so I could have some idea of what it looked like for aeroplanes. So this is my record of a jumbo landing. Do you think that was the flight from Chiang Mai? The elephants are well trained up there. So the 4 similarities with sales. Firstly, there's always a starting line and there's a finishing line, and the finishing line could be our targets or our goals. And what we need to do is we need to resolve to complete our journey from our starting line to our finishing line, whatever happens. And in Roland's trip in the helicopter, we had some fog, so we had some unexpected things happen on the route. And in our sales careers, unexpected things happen to us. So we start off at the beginning of the year, we have a plan, and we have to work through whatever happens, whatever fog occurs in our daily careers, so that we still get to the finishing line. The second thing that happens in sales is there's always a time scale. So there's a time scale for us for each meeting, each day's activities, each week's activities, month and a year. And what we can't do, we can't go to MDRT at the end of the calendar year and say, do you know what, I'm really close for qualifying, can I have another few weeks, just add a few weeks on and I'll get there. No, we have to get our productivity within a fixed timescale. The third thing that I've become aware of is that we have to have proper preparation. So proper preparation prevents poor performance. And in order to be well prepared, what we need to do is the best that we can be ourselves. We have to have advisor skills. We have to be sharp on our saw and be as good as we can be as individuals. And to do that, we should attend courses, we should read and study so that we stay current in the areas that we're advising on. And if we're in a marketplace which has got qualifications, then take the exams, get the professionalism so that we've got the credibility to have the respect of our clients. We should obviously maximise the use of technology and wherever possible adopt and adapt business processes so we have structure to what we do. And all of these things can be received and delivered by MDRT. MDRT is really good at helping us be prepared to be the best advisors or best pilots that we can be. The fourth reflection I've got, which is perhaps the most important, is that we should share the plan. If we've got goals or targets and we keep them to ourselves, then we are not accountable. And what's really important is to share our plan with somebody to make us accountable, but to share our plan with a trusted source, because I think there's far too many people out there who will tell us what we can't do and don't have confidence in us and will tell us that we're not good enough. So let's find somebody that will support us, that will encourage us, and to encourage means to give courage. And MDRT, what a great environment we're in here for people to encourage us all to do better. And even better than that, the MDRT have a specific programme of mentoring where they'll train you to help other people and to be trained. So engage and embrace the mentoring programme and only share your plan with trusted people who will support you. Now, I think that when we get on an aeroplane to fly with a pilot and with an airline, that we've got total trust in that pilot and in that airline to get us from the city A to city B. I think that's a predictable process. We know how to buy a ticket, we know how to go through security, we know how to get on the aeroplane, we know what to expect on the aeroplane, and we know what happens when we get off the other end. And if it wasn't predictable, if we had surprises, I think we'd become a little bit unsettled by that. And so if we turn that back to our own businesses, do we have predictable processes in our business? And if we do we tell our clients what they are so that they know what to expect? So in sharing our processes with our clients, we can then deliver a consistent experience which will give our clients a lot more confidence. What they don't want is any surprises. We want to be able to have an efficient process that we run. Now, what we need to be minded of is that we're being judged all the time. Everything that we do is being measured and judged. My father, when he used to go into a restaurant, the first thing that he would do is he would go into the toilets or the bathrooms or the restrooms and see if they were clean. And his opinion was that if he went into the restrooms and they weren't clean, if the restaurant hadn't paid attention to things that we could observe and we could see, then what on earth would be happening in the kitchens and the hygiene of areas that we couldn't see? And if we got onto an aeroplane and the areas around our seat were dirty or untidy or not clean, then if the airline isn't paying attention to things I can measure and I can see, then what on earth is happening to the maintenance side of things that I can't see? And what particularly pleased me on the way across to Bangkok for this presentation, I used Etihad Airlines, and there's a card on my seat that says Immaculate Etihad, and it's got the flight number and it's got my seat number, and it says how was the cleanliness, and if there's anything to report, to hand it in. So not only are they making sure that their airlines are clean, they're actually asking for feedback to ensure that their customers are happy and approving that as well. There's a concept called front stage and backstage. There's a coach called Dan Sullivan that's helped an awful lot of MDRT members, and he's got many wonderful ideas, but one of them is called front stage and backstage. And front stage is everything that a client experiences, everything that we do that the client has an experience of. And backstage is everything that needs to happen to support that. And so it's important to be minded that everything that we do is judged, and the attention to detail is crucial. And in order to get really good attention to detail, we have to have processes so that we know what they are, our staff know what they are, and our clients know what they are. And what this will do is it will increase our clients' confidence in us, it will impress them, and obviously if clients are impressed, then they're more likely to refer us on. These are not the slides I gave you. One of the things I've noticed is that at the airports, there's lots of aircraft and there's lots of different airlines, and there's lots of competition. So we could use lots of different airlines to fly from city A to city B. And in financial services, there's thousands or perhaps millions of agents, so our clients could use lots of different agents. So there's lots of competition for who could be a financial advisor, and there's lots of competition for the airlines. But what I've noticed is that as soon as you take off from the ground and you raise up a little bit, there's actually fewer planes around, and the higher up you go, there's fewer planes. And so that right when you're flying at 35,000 feet and you're looking around, actually there's very little competition at all. So in our careers, as soon as we can take off from the ground and fly higher and higher, we'll actually have a lot less competition. And one of the things I've noticed is that it's always sunny above the clouds. And sometimes I think that we can look up to the clouds and think that that is our horizon, that is all that we can see, that's all we believe. And I wonder in our professional careers whether we ever don't make a phone call, we don't make a visit, or we stop doing things because our belief is that the circumstances aren't quite right, there's something not quite good, I'll just put it off, I'll just delay it because it's cloudy and it's not quite good. But what I quite like believing in is that if we just push through the clouds, that it's always sunny and it's always bright high up. So just have the confidence and the belief to push on for higher and for better things. So in our careers we do need to take off, and depending on the size of the plane, we need different circumstances to take off. So a small plane, a Cessna, needs 63 miles an hour on the runway before it can take off. So a Cessna pilot gets in his plane and he's going along the runway 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, 61, 62, 63, and he'll lift off and he'll start flying from there. However, a larger plane, a 747 for example, the 747 needs to be 180 miles an hour going along the runway before he'll take off, and he needs an awful lot more runway as well. So the pilot gets the engines roaring, he's roaring down the runway there, 150, 160, 170, 175 miles an hour. If he doesn't quite get to 180, he isn't going to take off. So he knows he's got to do 180 miles an hour and have enough runway. Otherwise, you might run out of runway and crash. So that would be quite embarrassing, wouldn't it, for the pilot to fill his insurance claim form in and say, what happened? Well, I wasn't going fast enough or I didn't have enough runway. And so in our careers, we need to know how much runway we need to take off, and we need to know how fast we need to go in order to take off. So I think we need to have that information first, and then we need to have sustained concentration, focus, and in the metaphor of flying the plane, full power, full throttle, and get our careers to lift off and to become more successful. And if we don't keep that power and keep that energy and keep making all those calls and sales, then our careers are going to stall much as an aeroplane would stall if we didn't keep the full throttle on. However, once we do take off and we keep climbing, then there's a concept called cruising altitude, gratuitous use of Tom Cruise here. But cruising altitude is apparently where we get to a certain height and we can ease off the throttle and we can use a bit less fuel and we can cruise a lot more efficiently at a much higher level, 35,000 feet, I think they quote typically in the airline business. And to get to that high level of cruising within our career, our altitude, the two things that make up our altitude is our attitude and our aptitude determines our altitude. So our attitude is how we think and about ourselves and about our business, and our aptitude is our skills. So if we have good self-belief and we increase our skills, then that will help us get to fly at a higher altitude in our careers. So that's a good challenge to ourselves to say, how fast can we get up to our own cruising altitude in our careers? And one of the choices that we get to do is, do we want to fly alone or do we want to fly as part of a team and with a crew? And if we want to fly alone, that's a solo jet. Now a small plane can only make small journeys. And so if you're working on your own, the chances are that you can only have a limited amount of productivity. You can only make short flights because the aeroplane's only got a certain amount of fuel. You can only do so many things on your own. But if you want to fly for bigger and further journeys, then you do need to take on board a crew and have a support team to help you look after yourself. And I don't think there's any top-of-the-table members that haven't got a support crew. It's really difficult to have high levels of productivity and be doing everything yourself. And if you do take on board a crew, then all the pilot's responsible for then is sitting up front, and the navigation and security and the delivery of the plane, that's all he has to worry about. He doesn't have to worry about putting the bags on, he doesn't have to worry about putting the fuel on, he doesn't have to worry about the food and beverage or the passengers. There's a crew behind them, there's a support team to do all those things. So as MDRT members, is it possible that we can outsource some of the stuff, some of the things that we do, some of the routine things that we're not uniquely gifted at, so that other people can do all those things, and we can spend a lot more time focusing on being an efficient and effective pilot, and we can enjoy the journey with our clients? If we do have a support team, I think it's really important that we introduce the support team, the support crew, to our clients, because what will happen then is it will deepen the relationship across the firm. It's not just me as the advisor, it's me plus my team, and they know that we're part of a bigger operation. So I don't think that it's necessary for a financial advisor to always be 100% hands-on. I think that what we should be trying to do is automate, put our business on autopilot in certain areas, to automate and to streamline our business wherever possible. Another key concept within aviation is that pilots have to be fit to fly before they take off. So there's regular medicals to make sure that they're healthy, there's regular eye tests to make sure they can see what's going on, and very, very strict rules about alcohol intake, 8 hours from bottle to throttle. So the pilot is always fit for his job before he turns up, and we should be in our jobs also. I ask you, have you ever winged it yourselves? Have you ever turned up without a flight plan, or feeling a little bit rough, or not feeling on top of your game? Because if you have, you're not doing yourself a service, you're not doing your clients a service, and you're introducing risk that you cannot be successful, or indeed that you can fail. Another thing that happens every time you get on an aeroplane is you get a safety briefing. Every single time you get on an aeroplane, they will deliver a safety briefing. I confess that I switch off, and I think lots of other people switch off, and although the safety briefing is given to us, we don't always take it on board. But as financial advisors, I think we should give safety briefings to our clients every time as well, and we should make sure that they understand all of the risks that's involved in working with us. Risks such as inflation, that prices keep going up, risks that the institutions that we're investing in our money in may not survive and may fail, risks of the importance of diversifying an investment portfolio, risks of longevity, that we're living too long, we might outlive our money, or currency risks for investments. We need to explain to our client to be prepared for all of these different risks. This is what could happen, and this is what we should be doing. But most importantly, not just delivering the safety briefing, but making sure that the client really understands it. I think the crucial difference when we're one-on-one in a sales situation is that we're being understood, not just that we're delivering the message. One of the other key concepts apparently that happen within aviation, within a flight, is that 95% of a flight, the aeroplane is off track. So the plane sets off, goes on its journey, but there's winds and there's weather and there's buffeting and things happen around us, and the pilot doesn't just say, oh, this is an 8-hour flight, so I'll set off in the direction of Bangkok, and 7.5 hours later I'll see how we're getting on, see how close we are. No, that wouldn't be very wise. What the pilot needs to do is constantly check his gauges and constantly make adjustments to see that he's heading in the right track and he's on schedule. And in our business careers, we know where we start, we know where we want to be, and we need to be watching our own gauges, checking our own numbers, whether that's every meeting, whether that's every day, weekly, monthly. But what we shouldn't do is just get to the end of the year and wonder if we've qualified. We need to have steps and processes to check that we're on track and to watch our gauges. Another aspect of the safety, somebody's shuffled the pack here for me, another concept within the safety briefing is that it says, if anything happens, if there's an emergency, then look after yourself before you look after other people. What that slide actually says is, if you're sitting next to a dwarf, then look after yourself and then put the dwarf's mask on from there. But my recollection of that is that, are we being our own best clients? Have we got enough life assurance? Have we got enough disability insurance? Have we got a retirement plan? Have we got savings? Have we made a will? Are we proud of our own financial plan? Could we share our plan proudly with our clients so that they would be impressed that we believe enough in what we're trying to sell that we own those things ourselves? MDRT often teaches us, and only yesterday Tony was telling us that if we don't own enough, it's more difficult to sell insurance. If I say to a client, I'm recommending you have $1 million of insurance, and they say, Mark, how much have you got? I say, I've only got $100,000 of insurance, then my credibility isn't that strong. So what we should be doing is owning as much as possible, and it's very difficult to sell more than you believe that you're worth yourself. So be your own best clients and be proud of your own plans. Another thing that happens on aeroplanes is, on aeroplane journeys, is turbulence. So bad weather's out there, and we're flying along we're flying on our flight journey, and then the thing goes ping, and the pilot says to us, get back to your seat and buckle up. So sit in your seat, shut up, buckle up, and leave it to me. I'm the pilot, I'm in charge. Trust me to come through this, and we'll come out the other end. Well, in financial services, turbulence could be referred to as volatility in the markets. The investment markets go up and they go down, and it's normal. So turbulence on a flight is normal, and investment volatility is normal. So why not tell clients things are going to go up and down, they're not going to go up in a straight line, and every so often we're going to have volatility, we're going to have turbulence, and my job is to tell you to get back in your seat, shut up, buckle up, and trust me to pull you through at the other end, and just have a bit more leadership to our clients as to what to do. And an expression that I heard in the last financial crisis was that the only people that ever get hurt on a roller coaster are the jumpers. So let's keep our clients on the roller coaster to complete the journey and not let them get hurt by jumping off at the wrong time. I think that lots of people are scared of flying. And I also think that lots of people are scared of finances and planning. They find money scary, they find retirement planning scary, they find sickness scary, and the whole concept of planning they find scary, and particularly death and taxes is a pretty scary thing as well. What we need to remind ourselves is that to us, because we're talking about these things every day, these things are normal to us, but they're not normal to other people. And so what would be really good is if we know that our clients are scared, that we recognise the fear, we acknowledge the fear that they've got, and we provide the confidence for them, we provide the reassurance for them to get over these things. And we can do that with lots of soft skills. We can learn about body language, we can learn about behavioural finance, we can learn about neuro-linguistic programming, about emotional intelligence. All of these things are taught to us at MDRT presentations. But wouldn't it be really neat if we could be the advisor that not only takes the fear away of financial planning from our clients, but actually makes the process fun and engaging and helps them move forward. And that slide is from The Wizard of Oz, where you might know the story in The Wizard of Oz is there's a fear which is false, and then once you confront the fear, actually it goes away. So just be minded that not everybody is as happy to deal with their finances as what we think they should be, and let's coach them and encourage them to move on forward. Another thing that happens on the aeroplane, every time that we get on an aeroplane, communication happens, whether we like it or not. And usually, as we get on the aeroplane, it's, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Mark Hynes speaking. And they're taught to speak in a language that you can't understand. And we're flying today to Bangkok. And it's all very muffled and it's very irritating. And what they do is they introduce themselves, they introduce the co-pilot, they introduce all the people at the back of the plane, they tell you the name of their dog, they tell you what they've had for their supper, all these sort of things. Now, to be honest, I'm never going to meet the pilot, I'm never going to have a relationship with the pilot, I don't really care what his name is. And then they say, we're cruising at 15,000 feet, but we're going to be going up to 30,000 feet. And I don't really care about that either. I want to know that we've left the ground safely and we're in the air. And I want to know that we're going to get back on the ground safely, and that's fine. But how high we are actually doesn't matter to me at all. And then they tell me how cold it is outside. It's minus 100 and something thousand degrees. But that doesn't matter either. All I'm bothered about is how warm and comfortable I am inside the cabin. And so all these communications are just interruptions that happen. And on the flight across to the MDRT meeting in Atlanta, I sat down to watch a movie, and 5 times they interrupted me with absolute drivel. And I didn't, it was just annoying me with the communication. Karen just spoke to us earlier about Southwest Airlines, and MDRT brought to us the chief exec of Southwest Airlines at the Atlanta meeting, Howard Putnam. And he was telling us all sorts of stories about Southwest as well. And one of his examples of communication he brought out was a card that had been used by United Airlines for 5 years before they realised that this was an example of bad communication. And on the card that was tucked in the seat pocket, it reads, if you are sitting in an exit row and cannot read this card or see well enough to follow the instructions, please tell a crew member. So that would be an example of poor communications, but it took them 5 years to realise that. So how good are our client communications? What we need to be minded of is that all the time we're communicating by phone, by letter, by email. If we've got websites, every time people look at our website, they're judging by the quality of what's on there. Those people that interact with social media, we're being judged and measured by that. And so ask ourselves, is our communication being understood, and is it being useful, and is it timely? But more importantly, why don't we ask our clients what sort of communication they do want and when they want it, so that it can be relevant and appropriate for our clients. And above all, please try and remove jargon wherever possible. In our business, we do seem to specialise. Every company, every country has different words for pretty much the same things. But in the outside world, for normal people, they don't understand all the words that and phrases that we use. So please try and remove jargon in the language that we use with our clients. Now, when we go on a journey, we want to get from city A to city B, or when a client's working with us, they want us to help them with their financial plan. What they want is they want to arrive at the destination rather than go through the journey. And so in the example of financial services, are there things that we can do to smooth the journey for our clients? Can we ease the underwriting process? Can we communicate well with them to tell them what's happening and to give them reassurance that what we're doing is in their best interest and everything's working well? Can we instill trust? And what can we do to deliver a special service to be memorable, to be impressive for them? And not just a special service, but everything that we do is an experience. So what can we do to deliver an exceptional experience for our clients so that they actually enjoy the journey as well as helping them arrive at the destination? Another point I want to make is that when we're on airlines, so we're coming into Bangkok and the pilot's flying at 35,000 feet and he's got a target down there of Bangkok airport. Hopefully he's not going to go from 35,000 feet down to the runway in one go, because that would be a bit messy. So what he does is he goes a little bit slower and goes a bit lower, and then goes a bit slower and goes a bit lower, and a bit slower and a bit lower, and eventually gets nice and low and then lands and has a smooth landing, and we get off the aeroplane, and that's the landing that we all want to enjoy. And within our professional careers, some of our clients have got targets of when they want the maturity of their investments to take place, and they've got retirement dates that I'm age 60 or 65, and this is when I want my retirement plan to happen. And what we shouldn't be doing, I hope, is having all of our clients invested in the markets, and then all of a sudden one day we go, oh, now we're cashing the money out. What we should be doing is phasing or staging, taking risk off the investments and lowering the risk and lowering the risk and lowering the risk so that our clients have a nice smooth landing with their investments. We don't want to come from 35,000 feet fully invested in the markets one day to bump cashing out from there. So just be minded with our portfolio planning that we should be smoothly de-risking towards the maturity dates. It's really important for pilots and for planes that they refuel and that they rest. So a plane can't fly forever. It needs to come onto the ground, be serviced, be maintained before it can go on its next journey. And for a pilot, the pilot also needs to be rested so that he's fit to fly. So neither the pilot nor the plane can fly forever, and we can't work forever either as financial advisors. We need to refuel and rest ourselves so that we're better able to concentrate and we're better able to perform for our clients. Because if we didn't schedule time to rest and recover, then we'd be no good to ourselves, we'd be no good to our family, we'd be no good to our clients. And MDRT really helps us with this concept, because for decades MDRT has been promoting the whole person concept, where all of our life is in balance and we should be doing lots of different things, not just working all the time. So MDRT encourages us to schedule downtime so that we're better placed when we go back in to advise our clients. So a question to ask yourselves is, which cabin service are you selling within your business, within your financial services business? Two choices generally, coach or first. Coach is at the back of the aeroplane, and coach, or cattle class as it's often referred to, cattle class is cheap. It's for people who are very price sensitive. It's for people who have low service expectation and they're generally not disappointed. They have low expectations of the flights. There's generally no loyalty from the passengers that's at the back there. And from the airline's point of view, it's low margin and high volume. Lots of people packed in there, and they don't make very much money. On the journeys, you pretty much endure the flight rather than enjoy the flight, and it's often memorable for all the wrong reasons. Your legs get stiff and your bum's a bit sore, and it's pretty boring and tedious. On the other hand, you could be at the front of the plane in first class or business class, and first class is usually for the more discerning customer. These people are less price sensitive or not price sensitive at all, and what's important to them is to save time wherever possible and to save hassle and reduce stress. So they get priority check-ins when they arrive, they get priority through security, they get to sit in a nice quiet lounge that's with nice food and drink to support themselves, they get to go on the plane first, they're often chauffeur services to and from the airport, they get a menu, a choice of food, a choice of entertainment, and pretty much these people enjoy their experience rather than endure, and often they may be a little bit smug when they come off because they're refreshed and they've had a really nice time on their trip. So first class passengers or business class passengers, these are the profitable customers for the airline, but also they become referable advocates. Because they've had a nice time, they speak well of it and they tell other people. And what we want in our professional careers is for people to speak well of us and to recommend us and to talk well, and for them to be profitable. So are there areas within our business that we can move up from being a coach or economy advisor up to a first class advisor? And so what sort of things can we do to give our clients priority service and priority treatment and make them feel special? Are there any things that we can do for takeaways for them? Sandro, who spoke so well yesterday, I know he has allocated car parking, so clients come to visit him and he has their name on a car parking space, and when he's having a meeting with them he makes sure their car is cleaned. And I've got this whole separate presentation just on critical non-essentials, just on little things that make a difference to impressing people, that differentiates you from the competition. So what we want to do is make sure that the experience represents really good value for our clients. And Dan Sullivan, the coach I referred to earlier, he breaks value down into three constituent parts. Value is about relationships, it's about creativity, and it's about leadership. In this business, we're all pretty good at relationships, we're great at getting to meet people and getting along well. And what we need to do is make sure we come up with creative solutions for people, and then we need to respectfully lead them forward so that they can help make decisions and take actions, and in our case, increase our sales. But we deliver value by those three constituent parts of relationships, creativity and leadership. So make sure we keep delivering on those all the time and we're focused on them. So are we impressing our clients all the time to make it easy to refer us? Okay, we're getting to the end now. So in closing, I think that there's lots of people do what we do. From an airline point of view, there's lots of airlines that could take us from A to B. And in financial services, there's lots of different advisors that could all sell our clients financial services stuff. But as MDRT members, what we want to be doing is distinguishing our service so that we're offering a superior service to our competition and we rise above them. And one of the things I want you to do is to use a concept called anchoring. Some of you will have heard of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and NLP has one concept in there called anchoring. Now, even if you don't know what that means, you've all experienced it. Sometimes you'll hear a song and it will take you back, way back in history, maybe to a dance or to a loved one or some other time. So hearing something will take you back in time. You might have a smell, it might be a fragrance, and it reminds you of somebody or of something. Sandro yesterday was talking about playing with his watch, as he says that he asks for referrals, and then he plays with his watch again, and that reminds people that that's what he's about, referrals. I've just had a suit made while I've been here and some clothes, so when I wear my suit in future, that will remind me of being in Bangkok and of the MDRT experience. So that's anchoring. What I want you guys to do is next time you get on an aeroplane, and every time you get on an aeroplane, think about how you're being treated, think about how you're feeling, think about what's good, what's impressing you, and what you could do differently or what you could do better, so that you're constantly reviewing your own proposition to your clients to impress them and to be the best pilots that you could be. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that I didn't know very much about aviation or about aeroplanes, which was true, but in order to try and get some credibility from the audience, I thought I'd better go off and have a lesson to see how easy is it to fly a plane. But thankfully they caught it on video, so here's my first lesson.
Fly with me, let's fly away. If you can use some exotic cruise, there's a bar in Far Bay. Come on.
It's easy, isn't it? I'm Mark Hynes. That was Come Fly With Me. I hope that you enjoyed the journey together. And please give a very big welcome to all the translators who did such a great job. Thank you.